Welcome to the Geek 101 podcast, Patreon episode. Should you watch The Terror? As a trusted friend once put it, this place wants us dead. I'm Ariel Rada.
And I'm Andy Bowman.
All right, we're here to do a Should You Watch on the, AMC show, The Terror. This is a bonus episode for you patrons out there, and we will, of course, promote this on our main feed so that other people would want to become a patron. So, Andy, what did you think of The Terror?
I want to call it a beautifully misplaced show.
Elaborate on misplaced.
Okay. I think it's entirely worth watching. I think that the focus of the show, the human drama aspect of it, ends up being much less interesting than it begins, if that makes sense.
Great. Yes, that's a great call. Anything else?
I think it's probably one of the best shot television shows. I think that the acting is phenomenal and that it takes a gamble in its timeline. For those of you who don't know, The Terror takes place over the course of multiple years.
Yeah. Okay, wait. So, we should have done this. This is a Should You Watch. I'm going to give a 2-sentence synopsis on what The Terror is. Okay. 2 ships worth of what era can I explain this? What is the time? Late 1800 British explorers, right? Seafaring captains and map makers have set out to finish the map, for lack of a better word, at the top of the world. Up north, if I'm not mistaken. What happens is... Go ahead.
They're trying to find the Northwest Passage.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Great.
It's not so much to finish the map; it's for the benefit of the crown to have the fastest trade to the.
Gotcha.
Asian.
Okay, so they're trying to finish the Northwest Passage, which is it's a thing that I had known existed and just kind of wiped it from my mind. But what happens is their 2 ships get stuck on the ice, and they are trapped there. And not only are they stuck on the ice, but there seems to be something wrong with, the crew and the rations. And there might be a supernatural element haunting the men on these 2 ships. I think we covered all the bases there.
Yeah, and this is based on a true story.
Yes.
a real doomed expedition that... if you ever really want to dive into, kind of a darkly humorous thing, like the British, the Crown set these 2 ships off named the Oribus and the Terror, and the Oribus is Greek for hell.
Were these the actual names of the ships?
Yes.
Yikes. Just what? I mean, well... To be fair, Andy, they are veteran ships.
Yes. The ship captain, the ship's captain had done other things. I have a fondness for just really unfortunate expeditions in this era. So watching this was great. And oftentimes these expeditions failed, and they were lucky to come back alive.
Yeah, this is completely brutal. So, let's go back to into kind of what we thought. I think you have a great point that the Terror is of the utmost, like the highest production value, I think is the proper term I'm thinking here. I think the leads in Jared Harris and Tobias Menzies are very, very good. Jared Harris in particular is quite good, and it makes me kind of want to go and watch Chernobyl because of it, and he's very good in other things. This was not as much as I wanted it to be. In addition to how good it is, right? But still, I think if you feel like the concept is for you, I think it's still worth a watch. But there was a twist or turn here and there that did not sit well with me, and we discussed that off air. I don't know if you remember.
Oh yes, I do. Yeah, what I wanted this to be was a 1850s version of The Thing.
Yes, and it is decidedly not that. What this is closer to something like a very good season of The Walking Dead.
Absolutely, the best season of The Walking Dead.
Oh yeah, this would be the best season of The Walking Dead, and like The Walking Dead, there is a wrench in the human condition of this season of The Terror that I think is a story, a way to tell a story that is not for me, and we'll get into that later after we get through the entirety of the Should You Watch, and in that last final spoiler section for those of you who've watched the series.
I'm trying to think of. Also, Syrian Hines is just fantastic in this.
Trying to look to who's Syrian Hines play.
He plays Mance Raider. He plays the captain.
Oh yes, yeah, he's really good. Also, the senior captain that they initially go out on, he's very good.
Yeah, if you want something that starts out and it's creepy, and there's something wrong, but it's also it does the thing with a horror movie or a horror TV show that I really enjoyed whenever it happens, is that enough time passes and these deaths start out in enough of a way to where you as the viewer are not sure if it's just happenstance or if there is something else to it. And the only reason that you as the viewer think that there might be something else to it is because, one, you're watching the show, and two, because it's the first few episodes are spread out over months and months. You know, you're not seeing you're seeing it all condensed, and for them, it's over the course of time.
Yeah, I don't want to get too much into the plot. I was about to go into it. I think the setting of this show makes it wholly unique in terms of its contemporaries and shows that would be in its sort of in the wheelhouse, right? I think something like The Walking Dead or Penny Dreadful or, you know, The Strain, like things like this are completely like normal settings, but it's so unique having like, he's like, this is all we have. We have the ship and we have the ice. There was no escaping one of those two things. And I think that's what makes this like really interesting and makes it so different that you're able to kind of stomach it in a way, you know, it's a different twist on, it's something so unique. It's a different twist on a like usual kind of human condition horror story.
Right. And so if all this sounds interesting to you, if you like a slow burn, and there are fewer TV shows that are slower than this, but it's just so beautiful and for the most part just so well done that it's enjoyable. Enjoyable is the wrong word, but it's gut-wrenching. I mean, this it's hard to watch. I'm not going to rewatch this anytime soon.
Yeah, me neither. And we'll get into a little bit of that later, and perhaps in spoilers. On a scale of 1 to 10, how scary do you think this is, Andy? For our, you know, we're trying to find the temperature and relay it properly. So how scary do you think this is?
I think this is a 3 out of 10. The it's all atmospheric, and that's some of the best horror that I like. It's not very scary. There are no jump scares. It's all just something is very wrong in the Arctic, and that's it.
Yeah, I think this is. I don't want to use the word thriller, but this show is more about the intensity and the mystery than it is about. Like, it's about the tension, and it's not about the horror, right? And I think those are very different things. It's not about the gore. It's not about the jump scares. Nobody's like rounding a corner with a flashlight and a demon's popping in their face. Like, that doesn't happen here. But I do think that they're able to set the tone really well and keep you invested enough in most of the characters that you are following around.
Yeah. Ariel, out of a scale from 1 to 10, how scary would you say this is?
I think you really hit it on the head. I was gonna say 3 or 4. I don't think I was ever at any point like clutching my blanket to put over my head because I'm scared, like I was when I was like a teenager or something. Like, at no point did I feel the horror. I felt plenty of tension. I felt plenty of, like, let's say, discomfort for the situation. But I kind of wish this was ramped up to like a 6 or something. I think it's particularly hard to create scary TV because your attention span is so different, and your pacing has to be so different for television. So I think I would cap it at like a 4. I think your care for some of the characters and when they're put in perilous situations really contributes to the horror and the tension of the show. But overall, this is not your traditional horror, and they're not. I don't think they're trying to be, right. This is not your traditional horror show.
Right. Something I do want to say about the scariness level that I think really contributes to it. A large chunk of this takes place in the summertime in the Arctic, so they don't have nighttime.
Right.
And some of the tensest scenes are in the middle of the broad daylight, and that's something I think that is almost entirely unique and very rare in the in scary media.
Yeah. It is interesting. It's reminiscent of something like Insomnia, that Stephen King book, which was turned into a movie with like Al Pacino or something, right? Where it's set.
Christopher Nolan movie?
I'm sorry. Yeah, it is Christopher Nolan. No, I didn't. I said Stephen King. So it is both a Nolan and a Stephen King adaptation. So we are both correct there. Where it's like that's in the Arctic and there's no night for like X amount of days. So, like I said, that really contributes to like the setting, and it contributes to how the characters are feeling. I think the constant passage of years and months and years through each episode was to me was a little jarring. You're not able to get on the same page as the characters, and that's not. I don't think that's done in like a smooth way to contribute to tension. I think at times it was confusing as to how long they were out on the ice.
Right, and this is another problem with television, I think, in general, is because each episode takes place in its own time period. So you don't get an idea of how long the actual distance between episodes is. Like, you see the thing that says like March 18, whatever, and it's an hour later, then you see, June, 18,
yes,
whatever.
Yes.
Like you don't really remember the time difference, and it's kind of weird. And then sometimes the characters don't talk about the events of the other episodes at all.
Yeah, it's tough because it's long episodes, and you're trying to keep the attention and you're trying to pace it. Like, it's weird. You're trying to pace it both within the episode and within the season. And you're trying to have the passage of time wear on these characters, but I don't think they paced it correctly. I think this should have been like, for example, like chapters in a diary, so to speak, or something like, some weird inverse version of 24, where like every episode is a day spaced over a couple months, and they just need to tell us and be more clear I don't think the clarity was exactly there. But there are faults and there are positives in this show.
Oh, absolutely. And the positives definitely outweigh the negatives. I really, this is something I recommend everyone try the first episode. You'll get a good idea of what it is. And I think if you're the kind of person who likes the first episode, there's not going to be any stopping you from watching the rest of it.
Yeah, I do. I do think that this is worth a watch. I think if you don't like it, let's say 2 episodes in, you're just not gonna like it, right? It's not for you up until that point. There's nothing further in the season to make you change your mind, I think.
Right. But Ariel, before we get to spoilers, I do think we should talk about what season 2 of this show is, because that's the real reason why we're doing this.
Oh yeah, so for the listeners out there, this is an anthology series. So the story of the Terror and the Erebus and the Explorers on the Ice ends in this season. The next season is set in an internment camp, a Japanese internment camp in World War II, a haunted Japanese internment camp in World War II.
Yeah, which I think is another just very unique setting. Americans really don't like to talk about this particular wartime atrocity.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's a lot of media around it, and I think the one voice that is attempting to talk about the internment of Japanese Americans in camps during World War II is actually in this show, and that's George Takei from Star Trek.
Right. It's so awesome that somebody who is so outspoken about this like serious issue today that is reflecting upon the internment camp experience. Right, one of the few people we have with a voice, with a platform to be able to talk about that is now going to be in this show about it. And it's one of those things where it's just like, hey, this is happening today. And he can use the platform of the show, his personal experience, and all that to kind of socially remind people that we have something like this happening today. Now, obviously, these camps are not being haunted by a Japanese spirit, perhaps, but I think it's a perfect time and a perfect platform to be able to do that. And it's his responsibility to do so.
Right. Other than that, I think that kind of wraps up our show to watch, because there's so many things that are spoilerish that we can't really talk about.
Yeah, real quick, what are some things that you can suggest if they like X, they would like the Terror?
Okay, first thing, if you like The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing, you would definitely like the Terror.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good one. I think Penny Dreadful is something. British horror based on an existing property. By the way, the Terror is also a book written by Dan Simmons, who is most famous for writing the Hyperion series. So if you like the Dan Simmons books, perhaps you should try out the Season of the Terror.
Right. I also think like anything that's kind of a man versus the elements, if you like that kind of story, this will probably go with you. If you like Master and Commander, you will probably really like this.
Oh yeah. So if you are in the cross, like the Venn diagram of people who like Master and Commander, Explorer type things, and like horror or The Thing, right? That's that perfect Venn diagram, and like a little circle of like Jared Harris fans. I think he's excellent in this.
Right. Oh, I've got it. The Revenant.
Oh, The Revenant. Yes, that's another good one where it's kind of like this kind of brutal conditions that these men have to go through. Yeah, that's a very good example. All right, I think if you like any of those things that we suggested, you should definitely check out The Terror. This is a patron-only episode. We're going to get into spoilers now for about 10 minutes and discuss our thoughts on the season as a whole. Andy, any spoiler talk that you'd want to mention on this episode for The Terror?
I fucking hate what they did with Hickey.
Oh, yes. That's my only complaint, dude. So, you want to hear something?
Yes.
I didn't finish because of what they did with Hickey. I found no further point in watching because I thought it was such a terrible use of the character and the plot that I just didn't care anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't get any better.
I couldn't imagine. Like, I literally looked it up and I was just like, wow, the end focuses around Hickey. And so I just don't care. Like, and as the season went on, people stopped caring about the Beast. And I thought the Beast was, let's say, 40% of what made the show so interesting. So I think it was like 40% of like men surviving in the winter, 40% the indigenous people and the Beast, and then like 20% like the relationships on the show.
So, for those of you who have not watched The Terror, for some reason are still listening to this, and of course are our Patreons, which there's probably like one of you. All right?
Yeah.
Hickey is a sociopath that is aboard the ship and seems to just love chaos.
Yeah, it's weird.
He keeps making a grab for power slowly and slowly. While all these horrible things are happening, he's making his way around. He's also maybe gay.
So that is another reason why I was so frustrated with it. In this show, in this season, they are equating a sociopath, right, with moral bankruptcy with homosexuality. You know, it's like you are saying, like, this man Hickey seduced the guy he was, in relation with. Fine. But then you are also telling us he's a sociopath and a murderer and a killer and is like completely without moral. And so it's just not a good look. Like, it was just so weird. I couldn't finish the season.
Right. And basically that ends up being the problem. Jared Harris as basically the captain.
Crozier.
Because Syrian Hines dies pretty quickly and in a pretty great way. That scene's very memorable and it comes out of nowhere.
Yes.
But Jared Harris is dealing with his own demons and his own feelings of trying to figure out how to be captain, how to actually get these men safe, because he is not on this voyage to complete the voyage.
Yeah, so this reminds me a lot of like a prime version of what The Walking Dead would look like, where men sitting in a room speaking, or people sitting in a room speaking, to me it was just as interesting as hunting the evil bear monster demon thing, right? Where
right, and sometimes it was tense.
Yeah, like hearing Jared Harris, talk about and insist upon, like, hey, we need to act like the worst is going to happen, and we need to do it now, so that if we are stuck on that ice, somebody will come save us. And I don't care about the morale of the crew. My job is to keep you and me and everybody safe. And obviously, and then like the guy, Captain Fitzjames, is just like, you're such a worry and you're a terrible captain and blah, blah, blah. He obviously ends up being absolutely vindicated.
Yeah, and that's kind of the big thing is like that was interesting, but then it just slowly stops focusing on him, and it's like, hey, there's this interesting Hickey guy, and Hickey cuts to him, and he's like, I wonder what people taste like.
I really, really, really hated it. So I understand, and it's rough, right? Because it makes sense in The Walking Dead when you have these sociopaths running around, because one, society is broken down, and two, we are coming into the story years in the future. But we established, like, this show establishes that Hickey's a sociopath before he gets on the ship, and like you're only there for 10 episodes, and so for him to go from, Ice Master to, you know, Cannibal Lecter over there in this short amount of time, where the passage of time is confusing and is not beneficial to the pacing and story. Like, it was jarring, and it's frustrating because he's like, hey, he's a sociopath and he's also gay and he also kills people, but he's also like a cult leader and very charismatic, and I guess that's reflective of real life in a sense. But still, we talked about this with Stranger Things. Don't give me a cool supernatural story and then out of nowhere, for no reason, insert and focus on a psychopathic murderous character.
Right. Now, did you read the book, Ariel?
I was going to, but if it ends like this, I'm not gonna. Did you read it?
No, I did not. I was just kind of interested in how the book might have gone, because this could have been a thing that they just decided to really honor the book, and this is Dan Simmons, his shortcoming as an author. I don't know.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
I'm actually just looking up because, yeah.
I don't.
Yep.
Yeah, it ends the same way. I'm not reading that novel. Like, I just don't care. If there is and it doesn't seem this way. I mean, if there was like a slow turn, if there's stuff like this, then sure. But it was. I couldn't believe how frustrated I was. Like, I immediately messaged you. You when it happened, and I stopped watching. But for those of you who are still listening despite our major complaint with this, I still think the first 7 episodes or the first few episodes are worth a watch for you to give a shot. And if this doesn't bother you like it bothers me, then finish it. There's only 2. I got up to 8. I finished episode 8, so I only had 2 left. So when I found out what the ending was, I didn't feel the need to kind of finish it out. But the journey, I think, was worth it.
Yeah. And I actually think that the last episode has some of the coolest things. But besides this just character that's annoying to watch, I like the last few episodes are actually really good. It's just kind of annoying. And as I'm reading the Terror Wiki, because that exists, but we don't have a Geek 101 Wiki yet.
Right.
The book does end a little differently, or at least it goes into how much more sociopathic and delusional he is. But
yeah,
it's really cool. You guys should like. I recommend everyone just give it a shot.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's worth checking out an episode or 2. And then making your decision from there. I like I said, I try not to say, oh, it gets great after episode 3. Well, 3 hours is too much of a time commitment, I think, to do something. If you can't do it in 2 episodes, in my opinion, don't do it at all, perhaps. Unless, of course, the concept is there. But yeah, I think this is definitely an interesting thing to talk about. The show wasn't insanely popular, where it's just we don't need to tell people to watch it. And of course, we want to encourage people to watch it for season 2.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to season 2. Although the trailers do seem to be a lot more terrifying.
Yeah,
which is going to be interesting. But yeah, we just wanted to just kind of quickly do a little episode of something that we tried watching. Yeah, and it starts out so well that it's just hard. to kind of come to how badly it gets, or how bad it gets.
Yeah.
Just because of this one character too.
Yeah, it's really just him. I think if the pacing and everything was the same except for the fact that this character didn't exist or was handled in a more subtle or less extreme way, I would have finished it.
What do you mean to tell me that him staring at the a guy who's in a coma with his brains open and touching the brain is
Right.
Is just not subtle?
Or like getting completely brutally flogged and then like turning around with his butt hanging out smiling at people. Like it's really absurd.
Yeah. But overall I do give this a B. I think it's worth your time just to try it and see if it's for you. And it's something unique in an age where we have so much that is the same.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. All right, let's sign off here. I think we've got a good amount. These nice 30-minute should you watches. For those of you who are listening to this and are waiting for our next episode to come out, we are doing Amazon's The Boys, right, Andy?
Yes. Are we gonna do all eight episodes, Ariel?
We'll commit to 4, and if we both finish 8, then perhaps, yeah. If we both finish 8, then yeah, might as well. But I will definitely commit to 4 if I can. I will give you that.
Okay.
All right.
That's cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Andy, before we sign off, where can people find you online?
You can find me online and Twitter at Hebrews Paleo.
All right, you can find me at Jared Pirate Roddy. You can find us at Geek11 Podcast on Twitter and Facebook and Patreon. Email us geek11pod@gmail.com. That's all we have for today. Class dismissed.